action surge!
Yes!
It's here, it's real, it's happening now.
Oh my god.
We did a lot.
So much.
Might be my favourite episode.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, we did a bunch of ton of lot.
I really enjoyed everything about that.
Are you
episode.
familiar with like the idea of an upside down house? You know,
Yes.
where it
Yes.
felt like the upside down house of an episode where we came in with like all this intense energy and then the joy at the end. It was I loved it. I think it's the first time that we've done it, like coming straight in with.
We've had episodes where it's been like I always remember episode 4 is like the first half is all very jokey, but then the second half is like it was the first.
So
you know,
Ep 4 is Festival of Benediction,
That's right,
goes into the first encounter with the gloam in the
Gloam,
forest.
yeah.
But this one was like, I really did not think, and it shows. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in the fight. I really did not expect him to be that powerful. Us to be or just fail. I think we failed a lot.
Yeah.
Like
You did fail a lot. I think before we started the ep, we listened to the last few minutes of the previous one. We then chatted for 10 minutes and listened to music, but because it's quite the only other time we've done that. There was one episode that we did that before, where I said I really think we need to listen to the very end just to remember how it
It was
felt.
the
it was
fortunes,
the
wasn't it?
argument that we had.
Was it that?
Yes.
Yeah, it was that. It was
So
that.
it's episode 12 when we sat down to play.
Yes.
And you were like, hey, we should really listen to what happened just before you walk through the door.
Because it's such a specific thing that doing like what we're doing, which is a show for people, is so unforgiving that if you're in a home game and it takes you a little minute to be like, okay, yeah, cool, people are sitting down, people are getting drinks, there's a fight happening, it's kind of all right, but that's the first time we've gone straight into combat.
Yeah, roll for initiative.
Yeah.
Ends.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And I think we did underestimate him to begin with.
100%.
I kind of thought we would, actually. I had this inkling that he was going to be much more powerful than I thought. Because I went through that process. I thought, he can't be that powerful. And then I thought, no, he's going to be really... Because
it's one...
Harry wouldn't have put him
Yeah,
there
it's one
against five
person.
of us.
If he'd come in with a bunch of... Weirdly, it should be more of a red flag to you guys when someone walks into a space by themselves.
Yeah, that's
Like
that's why
if
he
he'd
must
gone
be
in with
strong.
if he'd gone in with like 3 or 4 goons, it would have been like, oh, okay, maybe he's like a challenge rating 5 gladiator. I've got like mechanically, I've then got a couple of bandit captains who are like challenge rating 2, I think, challenge rating 3, and they'll have a couple of attacks each. It's legendary actions, so he doesn't actually normally have legendary actions.
Do you know what's interesting about him is that because of how strong he was and how unique some of his abilities were, and how much it fucked us up, it actually made my opinion of him go even lower, because I was like, here you are, with all of this at your disposal, and yet
And you're a card
here you are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, it's one of those people where you go, you could be off out doing so much shit, and yet you just don't have it in you as a person to do that, to go come on, like, do you know what I mean? It made me think even
Picking
less
on
of
weak
him.
is picking on the weak, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like go find someone,
Exactly.
go toe to toe with someone, but like don't
Exactly.
pick on the snivelling top.
Yeah.
This is the thing where there's a sort of level, there's a suspension of disbelief that as you get stronger, the people you fight get stronger, even if they're not necessarily in a place where you'd find someone very powerful. So, for example, he was based on something called an Auric Blood Mage, which is from Strixhaven. And his original stats are challenge rating 9. He'd total party kill, TPK you. So
Nearly did.
I was rolling, so he has this blood boil, which is the mist. I was rolling 5d10. The actual roll is 7d10. I added in the Constitution saving throw because it's just permadeath if it drops you to 0. He has 2 blood lash attacks, which are 3d10 plus 5. I made it 2d10 plus 5. And then he also has something called Sanguine Sense. While the blood mage isn't blinded, it can see any creature that isn't an undead or construct within 60 feet, even through total cover, heavily obscured areas, invisibility, or any other phenomena that would. So he's got he's got true sight, and I took that away. And actually, I took that away on the fly while you were hiding from him.
Because I was going to potentially blind him as well with colour spray. I was going to try and...
He is. So technically, he would be immune to that, but he's not immune to that on his character sheet. So that would have been totally fine.
But he also had recover HP as well.
So I added those in.
Yeah.
So I added in. He had 3 legendary actions per turn. It was one action was to make 1 attack. 2 actions was to recover 20 HP.
Oof, he did that twice.
So much.
He did that twice. Yeah, he has 127 HP. But you've got to remember, like, that sounds like loads. But let's say Radiant hits with a 4d8 chromatic orb once. Generally speaking, that averages out at about 16. You did 43 damage in 1 round.
True.
There's no way you can't also, as Kel, do 20 damage, maybe 25 or 30 damage. So you can very comfortably do 100 damage in a round.
Yeah.
And this was 3 rounds. This all happened in...
Wait, what?
I think it all happened in 18 seconds.
Jeez. Fucking hell.
And then the third thing that he never used was I had him, he could use all 3 legendary actions to cast Fear. So you project a phantasmal image of a creature's worst fears. Each creature in a 30-foot cone must succeed on a wisdom save or drop whatever it is holding and become frightened by the duration. While frightened, a creature must take the dash action, move away from you by the safest available route unless there is nowhere to move. If the creature ends its turn in a location where it doesn't have a line of sight to you, the creature can make a wisdom saving throw and end the spell. So, the reason I put that in there was, one, I just thought he was quite scary, and also I thought there was a nice opportunity to be like, what do you see? Rather than maybe like your worst fear, like sort of little character-y moments. But it felt like he was so in the cut and thrust of trying to go for you guys that, we came very, very, very fucking close.
Just real quick, before we go on to that bit, talk about cut and thrust. Fuck, loved the claws. Like
your primal...
Primal savagery.
Primal savagery.
That's new, right? I'm not familiar with primal savagery. I've certainly not heard of it before.
It's a cantrip.
It is, yeah.
It's a cool cantrip.
That was a lot of damage for a cantrip.
It was
It's
2d10?
It's
Oh, no, you're correct.
You know what?
Yeah,
It's a Xanathar's spell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just not... I mean, I don't play
Xanathar's got
druids.
cool spells.
Xanathar's got...
It's really cool. I was confused about it, though, because it's such a cool thing to be able to do. But the way it's written in the player's handbook, the new one, is it's hard to tell if you have to cast it as an action and then have to wait to take the attack, or if you can cast it and attack on the same action.
It's a cantrip. You can just do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's what
technically,
you
I let you. That's a very good point. Actually, technically, you cast Barkskin as a bonus. You probably should have cast Primal Savage. Then next turn you could have moved and attacked.
Whatever.
Oh,
So
that was cool.
so that's technically wrong.
But I think it's better if you can cast
course
it
you do.
and attack, because
Of course you do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
But it's kind of it feels like a waste of an action.
It's
if
not
you
in the
have
20. It's
to
not in the 20.
Yeah.
That's the
cast it
trade-off.
and then
there.
But that's
wait.
that's the trade. That's the trade.
Yeah.
Because as we saw, it does a lot of damage.
But that's why and
roll the nat
Barkskin
20s.
soaks up a lot of damage. So
That's true. You can
You know.
pull
Yeah,
the nat 20.
actually-
Yeah, 20, so it doesn't matter.
No. It says you channel primal magic to cause your teeth or fingernails to sharpen, ready to deliver a corrosive attack. Make a melee spell attack.
Yeah.
So it's flavour.
Yeah.
So it's the description is flavour. So it's just a melee spell attack.
That's fine.
That's,
So that's it. That was your attack.
that's what I was saying, though. It's a little bit confusing, because when you read it, you could go either way, really.
Whenever it says make, otherwise it would say the next time you make. So that essentially, like if you've ever tried to read like a lease on a house or like a legal document, there are these or contracts. There's like this phraseology which comes up again and again. If it says make, it means instantly. If it says, or it will say the next time you make.
You went full Sabretooth. You went
Yeah.
full...
Oh, it's cool because
Yeah.
you turn into this
Full
big
Wolverine's brother.
bark-skinned
Dragon-y.
dragonborn, and then all of a sudden you've just these nails have
And
come
they're
out,
acidic as well.
and then
It's like-
and then you just went in for like a big scratch,
Yeah.
a nat 20 crit hit scratch.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That
man.
was
really
cool.
cool.
I was like, wow,
4d10s.
4d10s.
Because
we
you'd never
needed that
expect. Obviously, you'd never
Yeah.
experience. You don't tend to attack with cantrips very often.
I have
Shillelagh.
attacked with
Shillelagh.
poison with
Poison spray?
Poison spray. A couple
But
times.
that will have increased as well. This is the sort of thing where, in theory, it's just hard for me to stay on top of all these things for everybody.
Sure.
But like poison spray will increase over certain levels. I have no doubt. So at 5th level, it's now 2d12 if you
I
use
like to
poison
think
spray.
that your acid and poison things are like combined with his knowledge of nature and stuff that you're like pulling from.
Jesting Lamantine. Just
just different like herbs and stuff that you got like built up. You know.
Yeah, like a tolerance. Yeah.
Well,
shall we carve the main meal?
As I've said this on many, many occasions, I really like Radiant being in danger, and I think it's really interesting. And like, I think maybe some people would be like, I don't want my characters to die, and like, no, I don't want Radiant to die. But also, I was quite excited by the thought of it. I was like, how are we going to get out of here?
It is exciting,
and the drama was so intense because it led to just something that was really narratively satisfying. It could have been very unsatisfying, but from having not done the deck. You know, for many, many episodes, we do it once and then we have a break and then suddenly we have to use it twice and have them compete against each other. I think it just shows that like this mechanic that we've made up, it provides us with this incredible opportunity to do genuinely tense things. I think all of us, maybe you get it at home, I don't think you could quite understand how nervous everyone was.
Oh, I looked over at one point because I have never explained the mechanics of the deck to you because I think that's part of the fun. So this won't make the edit, and it shouldn't make the edit. But I was looking something up, and I looked at Aoife, and Aoife is like essentially my barometer of how it's going. Unfortunate for you, but like Aoife's my and Aoife looked genuinely worried, and I think there's a level on which. It's different to just worrying because someone's going to lose a character. You know, you're like, shit, all the artwork. Like, do you know?
I wasn't even thinking about that.
I'm not thinking about that. But then when I catch eyes with someone, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? but actually, I'd always had this built-in mechanic, and I said like, there is a mechanic, there is a way.
It's like we don't have a diamond, we don't have digital
we don't have a diamond, we don't have digital repose, we don't have anything. But I'd always had this idea that. It would be really cool for you to be able to pull one card, and then as a reaction, one other person can pull one other card. So if in moments like that, it is the death of Radiant forever, someone can be like, wait, I want one more, not a do-over, one more chance. Yeah. Now I don't know if I want to reveal.
No, I don't know.
More. But then as you know, we briefly mentioned sort of like around that, what happens if you then pull a card that is even worse? And then you're like, oh, well, now, like, are they both against it? And now Radiant's dead, and also we have two entities that are now being militarized.
That was the most terrifying thing for me, was the fact that, yes, I was dead, but also the fact that it had a negative effect. And you even said this, like, because it had a negative effect, it was you were already down.
I had 1 HP.
You had 1 HP. Like, we would have been so screwed because of the negative effects of that thing and because it didn't work in our favor.
It's so good because it's like, it was showing perfectly that the deck can fuck us up as much as it can help.
It's not like a instant win. No. And I think that's what some people are thinking, like, it's so overpowered, and you're like, if it works for us.
If it works,
Otherwise, it's incredibly dangerous.
Big shout out to Andy Farrant.
Andy Farrant,
for killing me.
But also that too, my God, is like the one, you know, like, that too would have saved Dolly.
Yeah.
You know, because it also makes me as someone who's listening to it question when you guys are using it, because should you use it pre-death saves? Because actually, like, there's never you never know the perfect time to use it, but it almost needs to happen before someone goes down, in a way, because at that point, if people are failing death saves, you're doing it blind and you got no fucking idea. Now, we had 2 death saves in this episode, both of which were passes.
Oh.
You both passed.
But we haven't used a card on a death save.
No.
I don't know whether we will because of the way that we do death saves.
Yeah, because it's too hidden.
And I think the drama of like someone critting or someone doing but also you don't know whether they're going to be high or low. It's kind of crazy actually because we had this episode we had extremes. We had Robbie Damon's Tabaxi Taxi.
Taxi Flaxi, the Tabaxi Taxi.
Just an incredible
also,
character.
Robbie was the person, so I didn't meet Robbie, I emailed Robbie, and Robbie was like, hey man, happy to be involved. And I was like, cool, just, you know, if you need to chat it through. He was like, I think I got something. And he emailed me the entire mechanic, which I was just like, plug and play. Like, it's such a cool mechanic. So I kind of adapted it to give you something to do if you didn't want to get out, because I think it's like you can leave without provoking opportunity attacks, and for each people loaded into his taxi, the DC gets higher. And if you fail the DC, you still get out, but you all would take opportunity attacks as you leave.
Oh my God.
So it's like he can get you out of there, but can he get you all out alive?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and if you drew him in a non-combat scenario, he would have taken you on a journey in his tabaxi taxi, and you could have you gain like pluses to history and some various
so
things
cute.
because he's a storyteller and he's telling you stories on the taxi and being like, well, you won't believe what I had here last time. Like, and so you kind of learn more about the world. Yeah,
His card was the only one in the deck that I knew was a nat 20.
Yeah.
So when you were putting out the cards, I was like, that's the card that I need. That's the card that
that's
I need.
nuts.
You were just like,
I was
I'm
fully,
this bit,
I was
I'm going
fully
to
like,
pick this.
that needs to be the card.
And I was always worried that we'd waste them. You know, that we'd have it in a moment of like
drinking, like afterwards drinking at the...
Yeah, because I knew we were never going to do that. I know we were never going to do that, but I was so worried these cards, these people have created this thing. We've, spent a lot of time designing this whole thing. They need to be worthwhile. And all three that we've pulled have told their own individual story and are so memorable. Yeah. I'm excited to see who goes down next or who makes another critical. It's going to be very, very, very interesting because we do have this huge, huge range, and it couldn't have been further. Right? Is a 2 the lowest that we have in the? No. What do we have in that one?
I don't want to reveal that.
Pretty close, right? A 2 and a 20.
It can't get much better. It can't get much worse. It can't get.
My rolling was ass.
So you've also now used your 20. Essentially, it'd be very unlikely. There are numbers that repeat. You'd be very fortunate to have a 20 repeat.
Well, thank you though.
Yeah.
Because I would be dead.
Yeah.
So
what was so mad about that was like, as I said, the original card, it has just permadeath. If it reduces, you'll get this more and more as you go. There's this thing called there's this death lance, which is something that certain characters have. It's just this creaking.
It was a creaky chair.
Constant.
There was one mid-episode which sounded so like a fart.
I thought it was a fart, but I was like, you can't acknowledge it. You're at work. It would make it worse. So I just pretended it
was 100% a creak, and I sat there. I sat there going, do I say something here? But then does that look more like it was a fart?
It's also, the worst thing is it's because it's as you move. So it's very much like you're going, like you're trying to make space for it.
These are very like...
Yeah. He can do it on command.
Last time with
Alex just shit himself.
Not again.
Originally, as you get further in, there are certain things like there's this thing called Death Lance, and a Death Lance is a melee weapon that if it reduces you to 0 HP, you die. And there's a Shadar Kai Gloomstalker, I think, has it. And so you'll get more stuff like that, particularly when Revivify becomes a thing you can have. Oh, she didn't give you the diamond. Let's make sure she gives you the diamond. Write that down in your copybooks now.
Give me diamond.
Give me the diamond. I was like, well, that's too much at this stage. I can't introduce them. I almost need to be like they use the Death Lance in another D&D podcast, and the DM. An NPC told them about this character who had this thing called a Death Lance. So they went into the fight being like, shit, this person's got a Death Lance. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm not going to surprise them with permadeath. There'll be that they can't do anything about, there'll be a roll. And I was like, I could really put the willies up them and do a DC 10 con save, but that's quite tough. I was worrying about you going down with a +0. I'm like, that actually is a 50-50, and I don't think I like a coin flip in this moment. So I was like, DC 5. That's fine.
What did you roll?
A 2.
Honest to God.
And he has a +2, so he could only have rolled a 1 or a 2. And I was like, I was so sure that what would happen was and it's like that thing, never put something in a session that you aren't prepared to DM your players through. So like, don't let them roll for something they can't succeed on. Don't put something in there that could kill them unless you're ready to deal with them dying. Like, don't let an interaction go a certain way unless you're prepared to deal with the consequences of it. And I kind of was, but also I was like, it won't come up on the first round. So the first time you go down, it's a DC 5. If you'd got back up and then gone down again, it would have increased by 5. So then it becomes a DC 10 the second time you die. And then you're kind of like, okay, cool. I was like, that'll be frightening because it's a higher DC this time. I didn't
think I'd go down.
It was an extraordinary combination of bad luck.
And I didn't even tell you what I rolled. I just went, I call on the deck of many friends. I was like, this is...
Was it a 2?
Yeah.
So you rolled a 2 and then you got a 2 from the deck?
Wow. Yeah, I'm not even joking. I don't think Ben rolled above a 5.
It was so bad.
was
Everything.
I've never
you rolled some.
like it.
You rolled some lovely insight checks after the combat.
Yeah.
But also,
Really
though,
sounds-
for like the 2 of the highest stake rolls, for your dice to get stuck in the tower
That
was
thing's
was
cursed,
basically just saying
Ominous.
everything
It's like,
that you
don't
needed
do
to
it.
know about that
Don't
moment.
do it. There's something like
Burn it.
yeah, it's got to be saged. And in fact, the one episode where I was rolling really bad was I was using dice tower.
That's why I don't use dice
and I've
towers.
not used it since.
I couldn't use a dice tower. I don't want
And I
to. We've
actually-
discussed this before, but I want it to
I
just
need
be from my hands to God's table. Like,
It's when
Yeah.
you're 19. Like, what's going on?
and now put it in the dice tower.
Oh, 13. But still, I would have failed.
It would have failed. But yeah, how does it? I haven't had a character perma-die at the table. Everyone's been brought back.
Genuinely terrifying.
Yeah, how does it feel?
It was very scary.
Well,
very, very
it was
scary.
really scary. The fact that it literally came off the back of going, you're down, thinking, one of you is going to perma-die here because how do we split ourselves between you two and
Yeah.
getting you up and then boom, but then when you get up, who's going to be able to heal best?
And I was in melee range, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm out of the fight if I
to
can't.
be so focused on these two and then suddenly go, no, permadeath.
Because
Do you know what I mean? It just suddenly you're like, going, whoa, wait, what?
It
It was the insignificance of his death. It was the stupidity of everything.
Yeah.
It was like the fact that I tried to do chromatic orb level 3 twice and failing when I have a +7 on my magic attack.
As if your last words would have
Yeah,
been
so you-
stop doing weird
Weird
shit.
shit.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you have to twice.
Twice. It was like I rolled so
You went,
low.
stop doing weird shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop doing weird shit. Dead. Like that. That's a wild way.
Yeah,
honestly.
and it was just everything about it was bad, and it was. I loved it. I loved the. I think I said to you in the break. I loved the insignificance of his death, but how unremarkable death, but a remarkable comeback was so interesting because it was just the classic case of just taking your eye off the ball and thinking like it'll be fine. Like I really didn't think he'd come for me, and I kind of liked throwing myself in danger, but I didn't know that like.
It was my only regret in my life. My only regret is that by pulling 2 cards at once, I worried that Erastus Gracie got short shrift. Because it's such a fucking cool character.
He fucking
No.
killed
No, I
it.
know, but in
the
terms
whole
of you
thing was-
understanding
Oh,
his,
what he does, right.
what he does, I mean, I can reveal this a bit, that like, this is Andy's character.
Like if you hadn't been able to reveal what he had done, you'd be dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, because there's also, so I can tell you,
We got
Yeah.
the bugs under the...
I can tell you his mechanic.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, come on.
So his mechanic is, whenever he comes out of the deck, it triggers like a sort of radial create undead, and the undead act in favour of whoever the role has aided. So actually, you would have come back and attacked the party as an undead.
Oh my God.
You are at that point dead.
That would have been fun.
So you would have fought.
Jeez.
You would have fought. You would have
That's
fought.
fine.
You would have
Would've
fought.
rolled twos
You would
and
have
threes,
fought a
it's fine.
zombie radiant,
But you can't... We definitely wouldn't be able to bring him back then.
and then after 10 minutes,
And all the
even if he
rats
was still
that
alive,
came
he
up
just
from
died.
the-
But so Andy and I discussed it, and we were like, "What if there's no corpses?" And we were like, anything that was once alive. So we were like, if there's like a stag's head on the wall, that comes to
Oh, that's
life.
fun.
Like if you've just eaten a whole fish, like the bones would start. Do you know what I mean?
Kinda
Like
cool.
all that kind of stuff. But he is. Maybe there might be opportunities to learn more about these characters. So I don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
But what Andy and I had talked about was this idea that there was something about, and this is so unbelievably specific to the situation, it's perfect, that he is someone who in life was obsessed with the idea of extending his life. And so the fact that he emerges and then starts to breathe your life essence in,
So hocus pocus. I'm here for it.
yeah, it is. It's hocus pocus. It's a little bit Dementors, like with the soul coming out the body.
Dementors is kind of the, obviously, but that's the visual.
That's the visual.
That's the
That's
visual.
the
Yeah,
visual. But yeah, so it was.
And it was like,
very-
Uno reverse,
Also-
bitch.
Also,
Yeah.
it feels right that it sounds awful, but it feels right that it was radiant.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Someone
it
who is
should,
just
it should,
so ridiculous
it should
in
come,
battle.
You know, it's like in you're Robin Williams in Jumanji, right? You've brought the mad shit back into the world in a way.
Yeah.
It's not your fault, but it's kind of your fault because you've got this thing.
Yeah.
God knows how, but you've got this thing, and so it
thing that
feels
gets
right that it's trying to kind of
Get you?
before it gets anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the hubris of it working so well last time and then doing it again and it does the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I've got this new thing at level 6 because of my class, which is instinctive charm, which is when a creature I can see within 30 feet of me attacks me, I can use my reaction to divert it to another creature within the attack's range. Which is a great fucking cool thing that I can do. So if someone attacks me, I can then, as a reaction, cast Instinctive Charm once.
Yeah.
And so basically it means the attack is diverted to someone else. And I think it's so interesting, but like doesn't work in a scenario like this because it's like it has to be...
It has to be a targeted.
It has to be it would have to be someone else.
Yes,
in
yes.
this group
It would
of
have to be like,
people.
no, they can take it.
Yeah, unless it's in a thing. And I was like, I get to use Instinctive Charm. I'm like, no, I'm not going to just do it, like attack and be like, and then can you please go and attack someone else?
Yeah.
In the
It's a
thing.
bit like that with area of effect spells.
Aliens
lot
are
of
so
the-
tricky.
I was useless in this. I couldn't use any. Like, there were so many things I wanted to use. I was like, I could have a go at slow. I could do this, but it's like it's all like in a cube, in a big. I'm not going to be inside and do fireball.
It's where you want a mixture of various things,
Yeah.
and this is where actually none of you are playing this class. It's my favorite class. It's why sorcerers are so interesting because sorcerers have a thing called meta magic. Just like a battle master gets maneuvers that they can do, and you get wild shape. Like the feature of sorcerers is meta magic, and they have such a powerful command of magic that they can change how spells work. So what you can do is you can do this thing called a careful spell. So you expend an amount of like sorcery points, like monk have key points, or I don't think they're called key points anymore. Actually, in the new 2024, they're called something else. But to be like, I'm going to center a fireball in there with my friends, center it on the target, and I can automatically make all my friends pass the save.
Oh, that's
So you would take half damage, but it would be like you'll never take more than half damage from a fireball. Or you can do a twin spell.
spell, yeah.
So you could cast a chromatic orb and you could twin it. You could make 2 chromatic orbs that attack at different targets or the same target. You can do subtle spells where if you have to speak a component, you don't have to speak a component, you just do it with a gesture, so you can do it silently. Like you can do empowered spells where they deal more damage. Like they're so like that's the thing that makes a sorcerer different to a wizard. And it's why as you level up and as you select spells, it's like I need a few single targets, I need a few area of effects, I need a few battlefield controls, I need a few socials. It's why when it gets difficult but interesting as a caster to be like, oh, I couldn't use that then, and you're learning all the time as well.
There's a really cool spell that I really wanted to get as a wizard, which I can't get it because it's a sorcerer's spell. I think it's called Fireblade, or which is
Flameblade?
Flameblade. What a sexy spell, Flameblade is.
Do you need to be in the middle of a battle anymore?
No, but I like it. I just think I saw that spell and I thought, oh, I wish I could have this, but I can't. And you just make
It's a druid spell.
It's a druid spell.
You evoke a fiery blade, and in your free hand, the blade is similar in size and shape to a scimitar, and it lasts for the duration. That one.
Scimitar.
We like those. They're popular.
That's flame blade.
They've
You
been
can
used
use your
well.
action to make a melee spell attack with a fiery
Betty?
blade.
But it's with my
I couldn't create a
But
character who didn't
use
have a
my
sword.
use my whatever
No, it's like a-
strength
I feel
is.
like
Maybe I'm being wrong.
don't
Here.
No, it would just be a melee spell attack.
Yeah.
Good for
I loved it. I really wanted that, and I was like, oh, I
But
can't
there is
do
a thing where there's a version. Can't you take there used to be a wizard thing where you could take a spell from someone else's spell list. I think you could definitely take it at level 8. You could take the feat, which allows you to do that. There's there's an arcane feat that you can take.
I know.
which allows you to
I know what feat I'm taking. Is it?
Oh, do you?
Don't worry.
Oh, level 8,
I've
I
got
get
my
more
feats.
ability points.
Yeah, everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone does at 8. You
And
just
then I
get
think
extras
that's
at 6.
all I get.
No.
Oh, is it not?
Well, oh, sorry,
Yeah,
you
I
get
think
more.
8, yeah.
But you get more later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I took some at 6
Yeah,
as
so
well.
8 is like ASI or a feat.
Yeah.
Is that the most tense fight we've had? So definitely up there.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
What big ones have we had? Medea
Medea
was
pretty tough,
Was pretty
yeah.
tough.
Medea felt more tense in the sense that we could not get enough damage in. We were spending every round barely staying up.
And
Where
also
at least
you
this
turned.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at least this time.
And you were
Yeah.
At
trying
least
to
this time I
kill
was doing
people.
enough damage where I was like, we are definitely making headway.
Yeah.
So it was like, when we could have gone out in the taxi, it was like, no, I think we were like, we must be getting close.
Yeah.
If I can get another round in, I'm pretty sure we can take this guy down. But
it's enclosed spaces, really, isn't it? We're like, we almost died in the basement of an apothecary, and then we almost died in like
The
a
back room of a
card.
tavern.
Yeah.
Like,
So you did over the course of the fight, I think you did 160. You did plus 167 damage to it.
I had
You
really,
did.
really good.
You had that great round where I'm keeping like a little thing of how
That's
many
all
you've
new
got.
play. That's all
And-
new players' handbook.
And it was and I was like, okay, we started that turn on 63, and he ended it on 15.
Yeah.
And then I had him recover back to 35, and then you did
That's
for him in the next
all
round.
new players' handbook, making just a fighter actually useful.
Yeah.
And obviously just the hit.
So
I'm
awesome,
plus
though.
9 to hit now as well, which,
Plus 9 you're really getting into like, it's quite hard to miss.
Yeah.
Well,
then
it's
if I-
hard to miss over the course of 3 attacks per turn.
Yeah,
which is
and
what
then
you have.
because I had action surge as well. That's much easier.
Yeah.
And I had heroic inspiration, so I was re-rolling, and then I still had 2 second wins
Yeah.
essentially. So I could have.
You'll die before you run out of shit to do.
Yeah. You guys want to hope I don't. Because I think I took 13 damage.
Should we talk about other things other than the fight?
Would you like to move on? No.
No, I love it.
No, I didn't.
No, because I think it is such a specific episode where it is
Yeah.
the fight and then the date.
Everything else.
And it's
Yeah, the
like,
date. I was
So
I
cute.
was so pleased that you guys didn't go with him. It hadn't occurred to me that you wouldn't.
I don't think it occurred to us
No,
that we
I-
would.
no,
I just certainly wouldn't
I was
have.
like,
I certainly didn't
we were
feel like
prepping him
it.
and sending him off.
Yeah,
It
like,
occurred
go on.
to why that it was a date.
Yeah, I don't think any of us felt like,
No.
wouldn't it? It was 100% from the get-go. We were sort of getting him ready and to send him off.
Yeah. And it was lovely because I just thought it was lovely.
It was lovely.
I tell you what, before the date moment, I also genuinely, truly loved the moment of Elwyn coming through, like coming out and catching them.
Yeah.
And catching
that was
two.
so
Literally.
good.
Just having your arm like wrapped round,
His
like your
mangled
hand round,
flowers.
Because I was like
Radia's arm.
Kel's trying to get away. I'm trying to get him to roll stealth, and you were miming like, no. So I was like, well, they're not. They can't roll stealth.
Yeah.
They're not going.
I was pushing in the way. I wanted us to get caught.
Of course.
I wanted
Of
it
course
to go
you did.
wrong. I wanted the comedy. I wanted the thing. It was great. I really liked it. And then the fact that we picked the wrong flowers and all the.
Yeah, did you? What with the lilies? Was that?
Yeah, but there's like
That was his rift, right?
Yeah, but then lilies are my favorite flower, but I also know that lilies are the flower.
Yeah, my mum's favourite as well. And
They're
she's always like, it's so
beautiful.
morbid. There's
Yeah.
always a vase of lilies in the house.
My favorite
Always.
smell is the smell of lilies. It's
No, it's the opposite for me for that reason.
Oh, right. Okay.
But it's a thing of, it's a weird one because obviously the association with what they represent is all very complicated in my own brain. But it was like, I thought it was a fun thing for maybe Radiant to misinterpret what the meaning of them was.
When you say fun, it's maybe the most devastating short story never
Yeah.
written
Yeah.
of a boy
Yeah.
whose
Yeah.
mother brings him in a bunch of lilies every day and says, "This is
"Wish
what
it
you
was you."
deserve."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, how?"
That's nice.
And you
How
think that
nice.
And you think that that's-
and you think
it's
that's you think it's an
nice. And
expression
he has
of love.
a
yeah.
nice
But I
relationship
like that
with
Kel tried to change
Yeah.
her mind as
Yeah.
well. Like tried to
This
make
is
it
where
better.
This is where I feel like Kel is so important for the party. That what Kel does really well, and what you do really well as Kel, is for all the like silliness, and he's always hungry, and he's always like looking for like a comfy bed. Actually, in the moments, so on the way to Mouse, when Elwyn was like, "We're not friends," you get everyone to carve spoons and talk about how really the only thing you need to do is just focus on every stroke of the spoon. Just
Because he's always watching. And he's
yeah,
always
and exactly. You having 18 passive perception or whatever it is perfect because Kel knows what's going on all the time, and he understands. I mean, your passive insight is probably pretty high. Your passive insight is probably 14 or 15.
Yeah. It is, yeah.
You know, and so he knows pretty much everything, and he understands on an empathetic level pretty much everyone. And I love those moments when he goes in his kind of own sort of gentle roundabout way, like, you know, we can receive her or we can receive the gift. And it's up to you which one you choose, but your path isn't determined by anybody else. Like, it's just, it felt really wise and it felt really appropriate. And I remember one of my was listening back to much earlier episodes, and I remember one of my favourite roleplay moments of the whole show so far is when you, for the first time as Kelness, really put your head above the parapet and said to Radian the first night after Barun, and you'd seen him put the deck of many friends into Dolly's bag, if you talk about trust, you need to tell us what you did. And that since then there's been this kind of, he can call people out and he can sort of offer that guidance. He sort of earned it.
There's a level of respect I think every
Yes.
single character has for Kelness.
Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
If you find Elowyn talking back to Kelness.
No. I think her vibe is like she sort of jokingly, cuttingly dismisses everybody.
Yeah.
But
When Kelness speaks, people listen.
yeah, and it was really lovely to have that moment just before, just before the date.
I also, on a just very much on a personal level, loved Elwyn, who is the name of a family member who passed away this year.
Which I didn't really. That name must have been in my head in the ether because I never heard it before, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a good name.
And Elwyn was a gardener, and Elwyn, family member, was a farmer.
Yeah.
And I was just like a nice little like. I remember like last episode being like, right, I'm gonna fucking protect Elwyn.
Don't you dare.
But I loved so much of all that like lead up to the date stuff.
Yeah,
like
that is the first. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
I was just gonna say like just that genuine excitedness from everyone around the table.
Yeah.
And having like playing not just like that I'm trying to either bat down everyone's excitement, but it's just total obliviousness.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of, and that in a way gets people more hyped and excited because they're like, are we going to break through and get you to understand a totally new concept here?
I mean, you didn't say no, which was nice. You took all the stuff,
Yeah.
and I think it wouldn't have worked if we'd kind of done all the stuff and you'd gone no. You took all the stuff. You took the drawing. You took the flowers.
You yes-anded all the way through.
everything, but in a
beautifully.
way that meant that you still didn't understand it, and so we obviously got like the picture that you did is kind of great.
The picture's amazing. The picture's so funny.
People should not draw what they imagine is on the picture.
But we can't stop.
I love just Dolly keeping it classy.
Yeah.
Because you think she's a classy vet, no,
She's
she is.
absolutely not.
But then you give her a pen and paper and...
Quick draws the Kama Sutra.
Just that talented, you know.
But what an amazing bit of, like, story arc as well for I.
Yeah.
Learned so much about Cobalt and just I as a character as well. You had all the humour and still everything was kept really light, but we learned so much more
It was
about...
a huge breakthrough. For
Yeah,
him.
just so much more about I.
Going into where we're going to as well, it's really, again, once again, narratively very satisfying, teeing us up for what we're going to expect when we go into kind of the sanctum and learning more about what these things are.
Yeah. The moment that she put her head on his shoulder was just the cutest. I was just
But it's interesting for her because I think I haven't necessarily figured out like the like married prohibited marriage in religious orders. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I don't think she said in the previous episode, I'm sworn to the workshop. But I also don't think it didn't feel to me like a deeply romantic gesture. It just felt like a recognition of a fellow soul, and must be quite lonely in a way, when you're having to be a guide for everybody, and you're having to.
She also strikes me as the kind of person that like sees this kind of gap in Ai's knowledge of gnomes and kind of would take it upon herself to try.
Yeah.
And change that if in some small way that she could. To
Scientists.
Be like, I'm in a position where I can hopefully open his eyes up to a different way of...
Scientists, when they genuinely get excited and they're going, when they're filling in each other's, blind spots and sort of like, and through educating someone else, they might be able to give you something and together you can create a fuller picture.
Yeah.
That is kind of where it...
I think she's a really good example of how an NPC who probably, in your head, was meant to do what they did initially.
Very little.
And then disappear into the background.
Yeah.
And
You were
now,
meant- you were meant
and
to-
now
you meant-
Quincy is like this. I feel like Quincy's a fully realized being in this world who.
But I feel like now anytime I comes up against gnomes is going to have Quincy in the back of his mind.
Well,
Like,
it's interesting how it did fundamentally undermine I's worldview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just like this interaction over these past couple of episodes, but particularly that interaction then, the idea of just of broaching the subject of like, wait, you don't even know? Do you know what I mean? That,
Yeah,
like,
so we got a bit of Cobalt religious lore,
Yeah.
which is that,
That was fascinating.
you know, that themself was betrayed, and the first to turn from them was Ristrin. That's as much lore as we got. And you and it's something that's really interesting because you and I hadn't talked about it. But to me, every virtue, there's this text called The Remnants that everyone would have an awareness of, which is sort of the collected tales of, written by, you don't know, but it's a kind of universal, it's like the Esperanto of religion. You know, it's like everyone can get something from it, but actually it doesn't really work. Most of you, pretty much everybody is stuck to their own, you know, the Songs of Théalon or Imlos Alvar's treatise on the Ignace, and all the various things and instructions to the just, and then his fables, and then the kobolds don't have one. So kobolds can't read, so don't know anything about what any of the other stories told about them or themselves are. And no one else knows the stories of the kobolds because the kobolds won't tell anybody. And so they have willfully isolated themselves. And even in that, I was thinking, at one point I rolled behind the thing for you to, when you said the second time she said, I don't know the story, I rolled. She rolled a nat 20. So for me, I'm interpreting that as she has absolute complete clarity. She rolls a history check, nat 20. There's nothing in there.
yeah.
Like, just because there's an enmity from an oral storytelling, why would that be? There's no reason for that to be either mutual or even acknowledged by the other party.
And then it's interesting because you start to go into, we all have met or known these people who have a feeling of maybe some wrong has been done unto them. And therefore they decide to retreat or withdraw. And in doing so, it confirms their belief and their opinion.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah. So therefore, it just cements it, and they just go further down that, quite literally, further down that cave. You know, and I feel like in that moment there was a bit of an awakening for I of going like, hold on, all this stuff about we keep ourselves away because themselves is not trusted, and you know, people turned on themselves, and so they turn on the kobold, so we tuck ourselves away, but now no one knows who we are, no one knows our story, so therefore we're going to feel more isolated, and it just becomes a self-fulfilling...
And it's almost like it doesn't maybe it doesn't have to be
that way, yeah.
And I was really wary of, and we've talked so many times about accelerated character growth, accelerated storytelling, and doing things in successions that you do in 6 months. This is the quickest turnaround. And I feel like, and I hoped and was proved right, that I was absolutely in the place where he could accept such a quick turnaround, because it wasn't a speech he was listening to. There was no politics being played. There was she stood to gain nothing other than wanting to show you.
Yeah.
And so even in I was thinking about that they were not designed, by the way, the circle and the wheel, so that they would be interlocked. That was when I was thinking about how she could make you something. And I thought, oh my God, they work as a thing. And actually, without getting too far into the lore of kobolds, that's kind of how it used to be.
Yeah.
Back deep in kobold lore. And she was nervous about giving it to you because I was nervous about giving it to because I really worried about being like didactic, about being like, and now you will understand and wear a token to show you understand. And so I wanted her to give it to him in a way that had no expectation.
She's like, you don't have to wear it if you don't
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think... And
Here's the receipt.
And you said, like... And there are times when I want you to roll for stuff and you probably don't want to roll. And there are times when you want to roll for stuff and I probably don't want you to roll. And you said... He understands it for the first time and he understands it completely. And I was like, no roll required. And it's so lovely to just... I was so grateful to you, the player, that you didn't choose, which would have been a perfectly valid choice, the we still has work to do path, which would have been fine. Like, it would have been fine. And that would have been legit. That's a legitimate, you can't undo generations of teaching with one act of kindness.
And I still think there is going to be, he's still going to be, in future interactions, fighting an instinct.
Quite right.
That.
She's just
Quite
one
right.
gnome, yeah.
Exactly.
She's one gnome.
Yeah.
And that was exactly her point. I think she says in a previous episode, when you've met one gnome, you've met one gnome.
Yeah.
Like, that was her whole shtick, was like, you don't know me, so please.
She might be
Hello.
the exception to the rule.
She might be. She might be the only nice gnome in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
That popcorn guy was a bastard.
Horrible,
He deserved
horrible.
everything coming to him. He's the head of the globe, for God's sake.
The symbol of themselves, the circle, the sort of, as soon as I saw that when you first sent through, the
Because
stuff to do with
let
the
me see if I
Pantheon.
can find the picture that I sent, because it was just like a clip art copied picture.
Yeah.
But I really liked the way it was done.
So the moment I saw that, the idea that I immediately was like, oh, this is what that is for kobolds, is if you imagine in their caves and they've sort of, they've got their sort of drawings that they've done of their histories, as they call them, and
it's this
yeah.
kind of, like this sort of...
So
Like a
to my
paint.
Like a painting.
yeah. So to
Yeah.
my mind, it was whenever they try to, because they can't write, whenever they try to, it's like, how best do you describe your god, who is everything to you? And it's like, you get the thing, and you just kind of go, literally like, boom,
All of it.
everything.
All things
Yeah,
are in this.
all of
So
it
then-
around it, everything inside it.
So
Yeah.
then by the end, you can see the bit was almost like where the first bit of the sort of whatever they're smearing on the wall, like, the first bit
Yeah,
of paint they're
it's
using,
thick.
and then it gets thinner as it
Yeah.
goes around. That's what I saw
Yeah.
that as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, it was really lovely, and it was just nice to, I don't know, it's one of my favourite interactions we've had in the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how much bigger your world is getting. It's
Yeah.
like, obviously, for the most of us, you've got no memory, but the rest of us, obviously, we've travelled.
But this is what's
Liquid is kind of
interesting, right?
open to us. For you, this is everything's
Yeah.
kind of fresh and new, and you're trying to learn at quite an incredible pace, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is
to
what's
keep
interesting.
up.
We've got two ways for the audience to grow in their understanding of Reliquiae through two specific, different disadvantages.
Yes.
And one is a lack of memory, and the other is a lack of experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like those two avenues, in any situation, there's always between them something, some information, some element of the world that needs to be explained
Yeah.
to a member of the party,
Yeah.
and therefore reduces any need for, and here's some exposition,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
watching. Do you know what I mean? It like,
Yeah.
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 And it's nice. It's nice. It's also I would say there are a few places that Endelian Dolly wouldn't have been. I would say no one. I'd say you haven't been to Lathy. I'd say that because it's weird.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous. But most other places, at least 2-3 of you have been, and because I like, as a storytelling trope, and maybe I rely on it a little too much, but I think it's much more elegant when a character's like, I think I've been there before. Or, or being like, this city, I'm kind of familiar with it. To me, that's more fun than, I don't
You
know
have to
anything,
describe
I don't
everything.
know anyone, and you have to listen to 5 minutes of me going like, I mean, I did it with Baroon. I did
Baroon's
it
a
with Baroon,
sprawling
but Baroon's
city.
massive.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between like there's a balance to be struck, which is kind of run up for the audience, but then the more of that can be handled through interaction. I think the better. To go back to something, I was actually very touched by the way Radian was with Pennick, and I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
The way like. I had that thing in a previous episode where I said that they get called sugars because they're very sweet, but too much will make your teeth hurt. Like, you can't... The learned friends aren't known to be... They're not vindictive. They're just idiots. Like, they're just privileged toffs who don't realise they're hurting anyone because they don't really think about anyone.
Yeah.
But they don't mean anything by it. And there's a version of Radian that would have really tried to frighten him, would have been very angry at him. And I found it very interesting. I don't know anyone who's ever had an experience where, you talk about to people who maybe had a heart attack and they were brought back, or they nearly drowned, or they had a proper near-death experience. People are changed by it, by and large. People learn. It's why some people end up finding faith and stuff. And so, for him to come back and his first act really to be such a generous one, to be like, you didn't, it's not your fault.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's like he doesn't have much of a worldview because he doesn't have much of a memory. So it's like dying is a strange sensation, but also like the idea of nothingness and knowing nothing is something very
Yeah, familiar.
Remind me. I've had in the past 5 minutes of us talking, I have an idea that I really want to run by you as like a separate thing. No, I think it's you're right. Inspiring by the idea of dying. I think there's something really interesting to kind of explore in that avenue, because also the same thing happened. Like the rushing water, all the same sensations that happen when that mysterious thing happened in the fight for the mouse.
Oh yeah.
There are many different things, and I've had a thought which I would like to share with you after the session.
Okay.
But I really like Radiant as having this bizarre moral compass, suddenly feeling bad about shoving people out their homes as well. Like, it's all of these feelings of just sudden not really
He's
having...
kind of all over the place, really.
Yeah,
all over the place.
You were such a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a mixed bag.
He was very.
He would be.
He's not been erratic for a while.
Yeah.
And then
it didn't get in the way of
we
anything,
touched
but
the
he felt
cards.
quite erratic
No, but you
again
could tell,
after
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It felt like it had rattled him, like he was trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't want him to be like, oh, he's really sad that he's died. I think like shaking that off and just kind of being weird. But just continually like not having a compass, and I want to find a consistency with him, and I want to stop having to rely on a personal level on the I don't know stuff. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when he starts to know stuff more, and what type of person he ends up being, whether he accepts the things that he learns about his past, whether that shit. I am just naturally intrigued about the idea of nature versus nurture. It's why I've chosen this character.
Yeah.
I've chosen this because I love the idea of what happens. Are we shaped by the events of who we are, or are fundamentally at a primal level we always the same person? So like, and that's, if I ever do writing, that's what I like to explore.
Yeah.
What happens if we erase our entire existence? That's why he's done this. So I'm interested to see how that comes up, and the more he learns and the more we do this water thing or whatever, it's going to change him and who he becomes. He will become less erratic.
Yeah.
But whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is going to be...
Yeah.
I also really loved the moment of Radian kneeling down for the hug and just being like, I lied. There was something. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Because that was
so nice.
So I'm assuming that will stay in. I don't know if it will be edited. We tend not to edit anything,
We don't,
really. But
no.
where I said, just to make you aware.
Yeah.
Because there was so much information that was given, and people were dying, that I didn't want it to be lost in translation. That you had I said, there's black and there's nothing, and then and then you're in black water and the surface is far away. And I didn't want you to have, I never know with you in a really good way. But I think I do know now that by and large, if you choose to lie, it's a lie, it's not you forgetting. But I would hate that to become entrenched and be wrong.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, no, I didn't see anything. I'd be like, no, he did, he saw the surface. And so then you're sort of sitting on it, a little bit like with what was said to you by the docent and what you saw. And it's Radian sitting on that and being like, it's just blue water, I asked. Like, I love the fact that, when's that going to come out?
Yeah.
And that felt like such a wonderful moment for it to come out. Describing a hug is very hard.
Yeah.
Like and also describing what flowers were very hard. Describing a gift was hard. But I really liked the
Did a good job.
heart
You did a
thing, and it
really
felt
good job.
really. I also loved the kiss.
Kiss.
Yeah.
This is where it had sort of everything, because it was the silliest, darkest, most wholehearted episode I think
Yeah, it's a
maybe
good
we
way.
never
Yeah,
done.
it's a good way to.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's going to be people want to ship people, but I personally don't think there's going to be that inter-party relationship.
No.
I think there's something incredibly platonic about every
Yes.
single relationship that we have here.
Yeah.
But so I think I could do that with complete confidence of
Yes.
being like, look, practically, this is what it is. I need you to know what this kiss is.
In the same way that if you asked me what music was, I would sing you something.
It's kind of the only way you could describe it.
Yeah.
You could-
Yeah.
Yeah,
one of
and
those things that has
either
to be
that or
shown.
or you kiss another person.
Yeah.
You've got to kiss someone.
And I'm going
Don't
to kiss
clip
the
that.
Cobalt.
Yes.
Someone's got to kiss eventually. And I'm glad that it was the elf with the Cobalt.
Should we
Someone
roll you some
enjoys
polies?
Yeah.
Let's roll.
Imagine if I roll really high on this roly poly.
Oh, I bet you will
And
now.
I get to talk about my favourite moment of the whole episode, which was I check the deck of many friends card that you've rolled, that you've drawn, because I need to know who to introduce and to bring their stats up. And the feeling of seeing it was Jaxie, Flaxie, the Tabaxi Taxi. Oh, I was so relieved. Because I said this before, the ideal session for me is one in which you win, but just. And this felt like maybe the most you win, but just episode we've ever had.
Definitely.
And I loved everything about it. And there's the moment when I saw that Aoife or Dolly had pulled Jaxie, I was like, oh, it's worked. Like this weird mechanic that we came up with this reaction-based thing that I've built into it and then haven't told you because I don't want you to know anything. It's worked. Like it's done.
Censor's gonna force the cards.
It's done exactly what it's supposed to. And also, that it was a deck of cards and that you'd watched him pull cards and he had, and you, just.
I'm so
I just
surprised
thought-
you didn't have layer actions. Because
He's
we were in a
not-
card.
He's not in his lair.
Yeah.
But I didn't know maybe if thematically you might have played with that.
I might have
because
done.
It was a gambling hall
I was
and
going
it
to have
like-
terrain effects. I was thinking about him turning the table on its side and pushing the table and it being like a big spinning wheel that everyone would have to like roll deck saves and get away from and stuff like that. But I felt like he was so powerful as was.
He had enough
it was
flavour.
enough to have him just being like,
So much fucking damage.
right, Ben Starr.
I go last?
Yes. Alex Jordan.
I think I might have just rolled the lowest we've ever had at the table.
Wow.
A queen 30.
No, it's been lower.
there's been a-
I had a lower one, yeah.
Have you?
Don't go
Yeah.
like a 24 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I have not rolled the lowest.
Someone's
I rolled
tracking
it.
it. Someone's
Unremarkable
tracking
shit
it.
roll.
What did you get, Doug?
71. I'm hovering in this kind of mid-range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Holly.
104.
Oh, broken
Hey!
three figures.
Wonderful.
Little golf clap for
Yeah,
breaking
thank
three
you.
figures.
What'd you
Johnny
get?
for Wilson.
Oh, well, today 126.
Whoa!
That is pretty remarkable. It wasn't for my 138.
They have their own story to tell.
About time.
I wish I'd rolled.
I wish I'd rolled
128.
126 on that DC 5. Wow. Well, I mean, there isn't a better place to end it, really.
Then on Ben's
Than on-
achievement.
Than on Ben Starr. Thank you very much for joining us. You can do us a massive favour. Do like this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Share it. I know you hear people say stuff like that all the time, but it actually makes a massive difference. And drop us a review on iTunes or Acast or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yelp,
That also really
Google
helps.
Maps.
On
Yeah.
Yelp. Give
We
us a-
always like
TripAdvisor.
to receive people's underwear as well.
No, we don't, Doug.
Don't say
No,
that.
we don't,
Douglas.
Doug. Douglas.
Douglas.
No, we
Douglas.
don't
Rockstar
want that.
thing, you
No,
know?
we
It's not a
don't want
Rockstar
that.
thing.
Yeah,
God.
quick, draw the cards.
yeah, and
it never
thank you
happened.
to Robbie and Andy.
Oh yeah, my goodness! Thank you to
yeah.
Robbie Dame and
a great
to
pairing.
Andy Farron.
Andy Farron for
just-
almost killing Ben.
Yep, and for Matt Owen as ever for the fantastic.
Oh my God, they're
artwork
so
on these
beautiful.
cards. They're so beautiful. Well, we can't bung some pictures on anything, can we? Because it'll reveal what happened.
Yeah.
But you'll will know.
It's going to be one hell of a good behind the DM screen when we eventually get to this month.
Oh
this
my
one's going to be
God.
really good.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you very soon. D&D, baby.
D&D, baby.